Hi all, Trig from the Queensland Finch Society here. I'm going to talk to you today and make this video about transferable sales boxes, or auction boxes we sometimes call them. I'm going to teach you how to build your own at home and to talk about some of the benefits of a box like this. Bird welfare is at the top of the list. This box is intended to travel with the birds from the seller to the buyer. The end-to-end process, it negates the need for transferring birds from a sales cage to a travel cage on the day of the sale, and that ultimately results in less stress on the bird. You'll notice it's enclosed on all sides except for the front, aimed at improving bird security on the day. They don't have to worry about what's happening to the left or the right or behind them. It reduces overall stress of the bird. The dimensions of the box are 20 centimetres across the front and 15 centimetres square on the sides. That particular dimension is the Queensland Finch Society code for short-term housing of one pair of finches. So obviously if you have larger birds, you're going to need to adapt the size of this cage to suit. Again, this is for short-term housing and sales of birds, short-term transportation. It's not meant for holding birds for long periods of time. The cage includes a water receptacle, room for seed and a perch. The second point is it's economical. Each box can be made for about $3 of materials. The boxes are durable and they can be cleaned and reused multiple times. 3, it's presentable and clean. It's critical that everyone in aviculture upholds bird welfare and positive reputations for our clubs. Old and dirty sales cages compromise this and make clubs vulnerable to attempts by some to restrict our hobby. The fourth point is convenience. At a busy sale, the exchange of birds with a sales cage takes just a matter of seconds. So having said that and hearing the benefits, let's build one. Alright, tools that you will need are a piece of core flute. Core flute is otherwise known as for sale sign material because that's what the real estate signs are often made out of. You can buy project sheets of it at hardware stores. You'll need a Stanley knife to cut your core flute. The boxes are 150 by 150 millimeters square on the end and 200 along the side, so they'll be 450 along the long side of the core flute and 200 across the top. You can bend it either way, but it's a whole lot easier if you cut the long edges perpendicular to the grain of the core flute. I'll explain why later. You'll need 2 end pieces of timber. Doesn't have to be plywood, particle board, scrap board, whatever. You need 150 millimeter squares. So you'll need a way to cut them up as well. If you are using plywood, I would probably recommend going something more like 9 or 12 millimeter ply. It just makes it easier to miss with the staple gun. If you have really thin board, wider board, then you're going to miss less. You'll need some zip ties. You'll need a staple gun, staples, need some thumbtacks. You'll need glue, some kind of glue for the water receptacle that we'll put in there. You can use shot glasses or pill cups for the water receptacle. You'll need a 200 by 150 square of wire mesh. You'll need a perch. You can use dowel from Bunnings, or you can just go down the bush and get some sticks, and so be 150 millimeters in length. And you'll need a hole punch to punch through the core flute. All right, let's get into it. So the first step obviously is to cut your core flute and your end pieces. It is possible to make the whole box out of core flute, but I just find the end pieces and using a staple gun is much quicker and simpler. So 3 sides of the box will be core flute, the top, the back, the bottom, and then that's stapled straight into the sides, timber sides. So to get to that, you know, a piece of core flute that's 200 along the grain and then 450 along against the grain. You'll need the end pieces 150 by 150. I'll let you work out how you cut them. Core flute's just easy with a Stanley knife and a very straight edge. You'll need to use some kind of rip saw or circular saw to cut your end pieces or talk the hardware store into doing it for you. The next step is putting our hole punches in either end. So the 200mm end, we put a hole punch in, and that enables us to secure the front wire mesh with zip ties later down the track. You can use a single hole punch like this, but it's very easy if you have one of these. Makes life a whole lot faster. And we also need to put our bends in. So you can see the box here, we have bends. We need to pre-bend the core flute so that when we go to assemble it, it just makes life a lot easier and cleaner, sharper edges. So to bend core flute, like I said, we're bending it with the grain. So core flute actually bends with the grain really easily, but we've got to get it in the right spot. So what you want to do is you want to have a piece of timber that's 150 wide, preferably longer than 200, and you want to hold it down. You want to hold it down on your piece firmly and then lift the other side up to get that perfectly sized shape. You move it along, do the same on that end, and then you've got your bends. Hole punch the ends, and that's ready to go. If you're going to be building a lot of boxes, you might want to make a little jig. It's very easy. We've made a jig here, which you can slide the core flute into, okay, and it's 150 across here, and I've just got a stopper on the end, whatever works. It's not built for looks, it's built for functionality, but put that in there, it stops it at 150, and you put your fingers underneath, and then you've got your bend just like that. Now, if you do it at the same time as hole punching, what I do is I stick it in there, hole punch on the end, that's done, bend it up, turn it around, slide it in, hole punch, oh, get them a bit off center, and then bend the other side as well. And then that's done. Alright, so now we've got our core flute that's got our bends and our holes in it. We've got our two end pieces. So now it comes time to putting all this together. Now to do this, we basically need to staple the edges on. So I just start with one side. Now you can use a hand staple gun, you can use a battery operated staple gun. If you've got a stapler, an air compressor stapler, it just makes life a lot easier. So put one side on there, line up the other side. Compressor's going to go soon and make a whole lot of noise, so just ignore that. We've got our folds, so it makes life a bit easier. So fold it over, that side, that side, fold it over. And now we have an almost finished box. So next step. All right, we're going to talk about what goes on the inside of the box now. While we've got access, we do as much as we can inside. So we're going to talk about the drink feeder, and we're going to talk about the perch. So starting off with the perch, if you want to go free, you can get a piece of branch or twigs from the bush and just cut them up into 150mm pieces, and they'll go in there nicely. Otherwise, you can go to the hardware store and get some dowel. If you are going to go to the hardware store and use dowel, which is what I prefer to do, don't use the clear pine, use the Tassie oak. The Tassie oak's hardwood, and the thumbtacks just stay in it a bit better. The thumbtacks can pull out of the clear pine, and you end up with drop perches in the boxes. Natural options, even harder still, and it can actually be quite hard to get thumbtacks into these in the first place. So that's why I steer clear of those. It looks really nice, but it's just a bit too much mucking around. What we're going to do is we're going to fix the perch in there. You want the perch just high enough that the bird's feet can be seen from the front, but they've got enough height as well. So we're going to go about 1/3 of the way up. So what we'll do is about 1/3 of the way up, we'll pop our thumbtack in the back. Turn it around. You can see the point of our thumbtack there, and we're just going to get the dowel and we're going to push it on to the thumbtack. It's that easy. So that's the perch, and we'll obviously do the other thumbtack once the wire front's on the front. Now we're going to talk about drinkers. You can put 2 feeders in if you want, one for seed, one for water, but typically what people do is just put a handful of seed on the bottom of the cage and the birds will graze at that, and then a cup for water. So there's a couple of different options for cups you can go. Now I have used these shot glasses in the past. You can buy them from $2 stores or Woolworths, or you can use a pill cup, a medicine cup. You can buy these most economically online. The reason why I've moved away from the harder plastic shot glasses and gone to the softer plastic pill cups is for that very reason. It's so shiny to start with, it's hard to get the glue to actually bond to them, and they're so brittle they can crack. If you're too rough with them, they can crack, and then it's no good to you. You've got a glued in cup there that can't hold water. These you can bend, they're not going to crack. So that's why I go pill cups, not shot glasses anymore. I'm not ready to assemble all of these with my glue just at the moment, so you're just going to have to imagine that I'm putting a big dollop of silicone straight, just clear silicone straight on to the bottom there, a big blob of it, and then I just push the cup on, and that's where it will go. We let that silicone cure and we come back and do the next step. We're going to talk about the wire. Now, the wire that goes on the front of the cage, I just use mouse-proof wire. It's just what I've got, lots of lying around, but you'll need to cut it to length. So your height is not as critical, because you've got a bit of flex in the core flute, but getting your width is critical because you're going to be wanting to staple on the sides of these. So you're going to want enough width there of your wire to actually get some purchase so you can staple it, but you don't want it hanging off the edges either, because that's going to be a hazard. It's going to cut your hands. So you want to have it just right. So we're looking for that Goldilocks sort of length of the wire. So what I do is I just cut my wire, I'll cut strips of it in 1500, and then I'll go along and I'll put it on the box. Every box is just a wee bit different, so I'll put it on the box. The wire too is never square or straight, so I can see now that that's the length I want to have. So I'll get my cutters. You can use side cutters or you can use tin snips. I prefer to use tin snips. And you want to get right on that vertical as close as you can, so there's no protruding or very few protruding spikes, because they do spike and they hurt. Oops. So now we have a cut piece of this. Now, important to note, because I've gone close to avoid any spikes, on the part I've discarded, it's all spikes. Now, you could be sloppy and just put that on the next one and let them hang over, but I don't like that. I think that it's better to trim it, and I always skip one vertical and I trim up the other side. And the reason I do that is because then you don't get 1,000 little bits of spikes flying off everywhere to get stuck in your feet. Your waste is fairly well contained. Put that in the bin, and then you're ready to start your next one. Another thing to note with wire fronts on display cages or sales cages is I paint mine. I paint them black, and the reason is the same reason we paint our aviary wire black, so you can see through it more easily and see the birds. Put the wire, we hold it nice and carefully. Just the same process as the compressor. Same process as as fixing the core flute to the sides. So we've put staples in the sides, and now we need to fix it to the top and bottom. So to do that, we use zip ties. So we'll simply go through the wire, up through the top, pull that through the top. Now I pull these tight and then cut them off. They don't have to be screaming tight, just tight enough. And then you'll find that you can just push those ends into the holes that we made with the hole punch, and it's nice and tidy. So, very quickly, same on the other side. Cut our waste off, push those into the holes. We can put the other thumbtack in to our dowel. So, good thing about Tassie oak is that you don't need a hammer. You can just put that thumbtack in and it holds just nicely. Our perch is firmly fixed now. Now all we're going to do is put a bit of tape across the bottom of the box. Now I just use white gaffer tape because it looks good. Down the sides, get our knife, just make it look nice and tidy. So underneath there, and then underneath there as well. Now the reason why we put that tape is simply to stop the seed that they're going to be eating on the ground from falling out the front, and it also gives you something to attach a label to for the auction, or write on. Now all that's left is basically putting an access port in the top of the box. So the easiest way to make a door in the top of the cage is to use a sharp Stanley knife. We're going to cut on 3 sides and use one as the hinge. Remembering the core flute grain, it's much easier to fold on a hinge. So we can either decide to have it hinge back or hinge forward. Probably makes not much of a difference. So just very carefully, we're going to go across the grain. We're going to make 2 cuts parallel to each other. And then 1 cut to finish the door. We use a straight edge along the fold. We can then make a clean hinge. Piece of tape. I like to fold the end of the tape for ease of access later. And you now have a secure door to put the birds in and out. Alright guys, so that's it. That is a completed auction sales box, and it conforms to the code as per the Queensland Finch Society for the short-term keeping of birds for sales and transport. If you'd like to give this a go, I hope this instructional has assisted. But if you live in Southeast Queensland and you would rather just buy them through the club at Queensland Finch Society, the member price for these at the time of making this video is about $5 a box. So really good value if you want to just pick up some just like this through the Queensland Finch Society. If you're not near the Queensland Finch Society, why don't you talk to your own bird club about having a working bee and maybe making a bunch of these boxes for your next sale. So hope this has helped. Enjoy your finch keeping, folks, and until next time, see you later.